Hello. So in today's video, I am going to continue with my Artist Mindset series and talk about self-confidence and self-esteem. And you may think, well, what's that got to do with artists? And the reality is that all of us, whether we are artists or not, self-confidence and self-esteem is really important. So just a quick definition: self-esteem is the way in which we perceive and value and perceive ourselves. And for artists, what is often a challenge is you may think that as long as we have the techniques under our belt, are very experienced with the different sort of ways in which we want to create our art, that is really it. But in reality, one of the key things that holds us back is our belief in ourselves. And the other thing about artists is that it can be a little bit of a challenge for a number of reasons, including the fact that art can be subjective, it's under public scrutiny, and the sort of pathway to success is a little bit unpredictable in nature, really. But the thing that I always want to do in my videos is that I want to bring something of what's happening in the moment, really. And so for me this week, or a few days ago, I was talking to a friend about some challenges I have at the moment, including family care and so on. And I won't go into that. But the thing that came out of it for me is I wrote a post-it note on my desk which says, "How have I looked after myself today?" And that idea of self-care is really important and a part of this, so I will refer to that. But the other thing that happened earlier in the week was that I listened to podcasts, and one of my favourites is the Mel Robbins podcast. And this week, earlier in the week, she was talking about self-confidence and ways of improving your self-confidence, and referred to this wonderful acceptance speech from Niecy Nash, who wonderfully won an Emmy for her work as an actress. And my goodness, she gave an acceptance speech, which is kind of a masterclass, really, in self-esteem. And I will refer to that. And then finally, the other thing, which was the icing of the cake, which meant that I really wanted to do about self-confidence and self-esteem this week, was that I have been painting in the studio, and other things other problems have been cropping up. And my goodness, there are moments of magic and days of derision. And it got me really thinking about the importance of believing in ourselves. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share 5 tips or 5 ways in which we can improve and help our self-confidence and self-esteem. So number 1, positive self-talk is key. Having constructive and optimistic thoughts about ourselves, our abilities and our situations that we are in is really key, really, to this. And there are a number of different elements to self-talk, and of course we could have a whole session just on this. But one of the key aspects of positive self-talk is affirmations and the positive things that we tell ourselves. And an example of that could be that I am confident and capable. That could be one. But another aspect of it is being aware of negative self-talk and checking that and turning that around into something more positive. And recently somebody messaged me and they were talking about loving the sketchbook that I'd done, but then were turning that around that they couldn't do that. And I think really that's not entirely helpful. And, you know, there could be a number of different reasons for not doing anything like that, and we're all different. And so I think it is about just being aware. And I must admit, until recently, I think I wasn't aware of some of the negative self-talk that I was telling myself. And then I think somebody was saying, well, you know, there was something around, would you speak to your friend like you are speaking to yourself? And that really stopped me in my tracks, because of course some of it can be quite harsh, and it is about turning it around to being much more optimistic, much more positive, about much more focus on problem solving, about being constructive in the way that we are dealing with the things that we want to improve, and being positive about that, and generally being kind to ourselves and nurturing and gentle, really, with the way that we talk to ourselves and the way that we treat ourselves. And hence my comment about what have I done that I mentioned about the post-it note, because it is about treating ourselves positively and about that positive self-talk. So that's my number one. Number two is really about keeping on going and small steps, but keeping moving forward, keeping moving in the direction you want to go in. And it's all about, as you are going, it's about being congratulating yourself and thanking yourself. And you remember me mentioning about the Mel Robbins podcast. Well, the Nisi Emmy Awards that I mentioned and that acceptance speech, there are some real gems in there about the importance of believing in yourself and keeping encouraging yourself, keeping yourself going, thanking yourself, and recognizing that there isn't anybody that's going to do it but yourself. And so it is about that small steps. And recently I've joined a gym. So it's not just about my art. I've joined a gym. And of course, I'm not saying I want to become a world athlete in the next 3 months. I am saying I want to improve my strength. I am focusing on, low weights at the beginning. I'm keeping that going for a few sessions, and I'm thinking about moving on. So I have small steps, small goals, and, it's just continually moving forward. And that brings me nicely to the third one, really. The third recommendation for improving our self-esteem is recognizing that this isn't easy. This is not a walk in the park. This is difficult. Things are hard. We have lots of things going on in our lives, a lot of things that are going on nobody else knows about that we've got to deal with. But it's about that recognition, really, and acceptance that it's difficult and moving on regardless. And one of the things I've listened to recently is this week I've listened to the BBC Sounds have this thing called Cultural Lives, and they interviewed Frank Auerbach, who is a world famous artist. He's now 92 years old, and he is still in his studio every day. And he was known because he used to scrape off what was on the canvas at the end of the day and start all over again the next day. And he was talking about the challenges as well as the rewards of being an artist. So when you think about that sort of a person, who his contemporaries are Lucian Freud and Frank Bacon, he's up there, and yet it's not easy for him. And he was saying that every painting is a surprise, and that is the magic. But with that magic goes the challenges and the battles. So my number three, this is not easy, and brings me to number four, really. Number four is, I've mentioned to you before about comparing and despairing, and so my number four is don't compare and despair, but be inspired by and integrate. And let me break that down. So I have this problem that when I'm on social media, I scroll and I see other people doing all these things. They're getting into they're doing these exhibitions, they're getting awards and all of the rest of it. And it makes me anxious because I think, oh my goodness, I'm not doing enough. So it's about checking yourself. So not doing that. So I don't go on social media and do that. And when I do it, I'm aware now I'm doing it, and I pull away and I ask myself, why are you doing this? What is the purpose? And there isn't a purpose apart from to, make myself anxious. But it is quite useful to be inspired by others. They might not be other artists. It might be, I was inspired by these podcasts this week. And so it's about being inspired and then taking things away from that help you. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I did a YouTube video, which was a book review. And the book review was David Mankin's book, Remembering in Paint. Now, in that, David talks a lot about his process. And some of that now I'm thinking about as I'm working, and it's helping me in the ways that it's not easy for him. Just because he's up there, he's got sellout shows and all the rest of it. This is never easy. It's back to what I was saying as my number three. However, there are things and ways in which he approaches things that I'm thinking about now, and it's helping me. It's about taking those things that are inspiring without getting overwhelmed and then integrating those as and when into your own work. And so that brings me to number five. And my number five is seek the support of others. This is all really important. We cannot do this on our own. We might, yes, it is all about our individual expression, but others that can support us. And what I'm talking about is fellow artists, artist friends, mentors, and maybe even therapists, depending on your circumstantial situation. But it's that seeking out support. And I've been very fortunate in the last couple of years because I have a group of 4 other lady artists who I met and got together with through a business group that I was in, that I'm not in now. And we call ourselves Verdigris, but we meet up on Zoom, and we have been a constant support, I'd like to think at least, to each other about our art, about other things in our life. And there's always this positive camaraderie. And so I think, that number 5 is kind of critical, really. Seek the support of others. And so I hope that's been helpful. I'd really love to know what your thoughts are on this subject and on other subjects. So please, pop a comment in the notes if you can, in the comment section after the video. And I will put all of the links to all these things I've referenced and talked about in the notes. So thanks a lot, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.